I'm gonna hit
We'll
this
just
start recording button. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's rock and roll.
Yep.
So,
All right.
anyway, right? So we were talking about the macroeconomic picture and all these type of things, but that's not super important at the moment, right? What's
It's kind of not.
I mean, like you have an issue with guys like me going like, "Oh, this is fear porn," and I'm gonna tell you what, like, cause I used to like buy into like a lot of the same shit that you say, right? I used to like, I was heavy duty into Gerald Celente, Storm Clouds Gathering, Peter Schiff, Alex Jones, Infowars. Trying to think here. What the hell is that website that got banned from Twitter? Um,
I've been one of. I mean, I've been one of them for God's sake.
what, what,
There's
what was the
so
what
many
was the
at this
website that got
point.
banned though? What was the name of them? Do you remember? They got
Oh,
banned.
what was it? That white supremacist one? You mean?
No, 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 not
Yeah.
not that one, not that one, not that one. The
No,
other
no.
one,
See, well, that
Zero
shouldn't have
Hedge,
gotten banned.
Zero Hedge.
Zero Hedge. Zero Hedge literally got banned. They got bought out, but now they're banned.
Yeah, they got banned
Okay.
from
No, no,
Twitter.
no, no, no. All right. Listen. Maybe you think you used to be deep in that stuff, but at this point, you ought to be able to look around you and see that a lot of it was true in the first place. I have a general feel for these things that is from my experience in certain real. See, we all have to get to where we say we see things from certain experiences, right? I mean, I can tell you who I think is behind Alex Jones, and I can tell you who their friends are. And when I look at any media source, I actually do try to look at who are their friends and what is their bias. And people like Alex Jones, for example, have not been truly transparent in a long time. Doesn't mean everything they've got going is wrong, but they're not. I look for real credibility, real track record over a long haul of at least honesty of being who exactly they are. And so those are the sources I follow. And, I'm sorry, I've got my copy of COVID-19, The Great Reset by Klaus Schwab. I'm looking literally at what the World Health Organization and Bill Gates are saying and doing. And I'm going, what the fuck does it take to get you guys to look at this? And, because this is just whether these great reset plans are going to go according to plan or not. A lot of it really is in what they're saying. This is what they're saying they're doing, and so a lot of it is. And Klaus Schwab says the United States will cease to be a world power in the coming years, and I don't see how any sane person thinks the COVID-19 lockdowns make any sense, unless you look at the power of the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization, which are allied. This isn't conspiracy anymore. It's right out in your face. Tons of Catholic channels are talking about it. Tons of other Christian channels. Tons of secular channels are talking about it. At this point, this shit ain't secret. It's just a matter of, okay, what else do you bring to the perspective? Like, what can slow this down? I think what men of our type need to be doing is saying, all right, we all need to be able to adjust our thinking. And I can be wrong about things, but we've got to stop dismissing each other and rather being able to say, all right, well, this is the perspective you have. Just like the last time we had a podcast, you and that guy started yammering at each other. And then it was like, no, wait a minute. You guy A, state your piece. You guy B, state your piece. Now, where can we come to common ground? We need to see more of that. Because, literally the U.S. is coming apart, all right? And that's not a conspiracy anymore. At least pockets of the United States are falling apart right now and are starting to look like Bosnia. You have to be crazy to deny it. I just don't know how widespread it's going to be. But I'm guessing a lot, since the dollar is going to collapse, pension systems are going to collapse. These lockdown madness things ain't going to stop. And, we're looking at civil war. I don't know how anybody thinks we're not. I mean,
Right.
not civil war in the we're going to have blue and gray on battlefields, but at the military is going to get involved in our elections. That's the bottom line. It's not going to not happen. I've seen enough sources, including people close to me, which I don't have to convince you. I know some really fucking smart people who are connected. it's pretty much go time. The U.S. military is going to be involved. The Electoral College is probably going to be fucked up. The Democrats and Trump are each declaring each other going to be declaring each other not legitimate, no matter what happens at this point.
All
The
right.
whole
So
system.
so today
So there's
today
going to
there
be
was.
economic chaos. So now I'm going to shut up. We're looking at economic chaos, and that's going to
Okay.
include
Okay.
food.
Okay. All right. So like here's my problem. All right. Here's all right. So what you have to understand is when I stand here and go, what about this, right? And here's what this is. And
Yeah,
it seems dismissive of your point, but on the same point, I'm going, all right, look, let's stand here and test out our ideologies against what's going on and like see if there are like holes in what we're saying, because I think it's important that
yeah.
when we speak it's not just like, oh, we're spouting off that this is going to happen, that's going to happen, that's going to happen, because like people are going, other people who are in the know are going to go, no, 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 that can't happen, that can't happen. And they'll go, why? And they'll go this and this and this, and if it makes sense, right, and if it has logic and holds weight,
No,
we
yeah,
have
no.
to.
All propositions must be tested, especially because it really is true. I will quote QAnon, okay, and believe me, don't laugh when you say QAnon. QAnon is significant, and somebody who knows something about it, who has not been trapped into thinking, it's turned into a cult for a lot of people. But it contained useful information, and viewed from an outside perspective, I could see what it was, both from having read and from known people in the intel services, which I have more than one. QAnon was a professional psyop. It's probably mostly done by AI there, and some of it's true and some of it's not, but it's used to help Trump get reelected. Its true believer followers will be sorely disappointed in a lot of things, but it was a significant political phenomenon, like the Tea Party or Occupy Wall Street, just kind of in a cyber phenomenon. Manipulated for sure if you were sucked in by it, but it was interesting to observe. And that sort of thing is useful to know. And similarly, if you just look at it, take away anything like this, and if you just look at it from a geopolitical perspective, the pattern the United States is falling into right now very much matches what has been happening to basically communists versus nationalists. What is happening right now, communists versus nationalists, this like always goes a certain way. There's only two ways it always
Okay. All right.
goes.
All right. All right. So,
Um,
like, can I get my piece in a little
sure,
bit,
sure,
right?
sure, sure.
Because
Sure,
like
go ahead.
I have stuff that actually happened today that I got. I have news articles on or whatever, and I was gonna cover because I actually do
Right.
find it significant. Texas actually just took other states to courts over the
Yep.
election, right? Now,
Yep.
and what I told everybody, I said, look, the only way that civil war happens, legit, the only way that it actually really gets down and dirty is if one side is upset about the election and the states start, as a whole, as governments, start taking fucking action. And once that
Yeah.
happens, it changes the entire game, right? That's a
It.
whole new fucking ball game
Oh, it
altogether.
is. Oh, it is. Especially if it's something like Texas, which Texans sometimes over brag it, but there is still to this day a mentality that Texas feels they could leave if they want to, and they have good reason to think it. They even have their own power grid. No other state has that. A lot of people don't know that. I know that from my background in engineering. There's literally three power grids in the United States: Eastern, Western, and Texas. Um, Hello?
I'm here. I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm fucking with my mic right now.
No, I mean, but that's just an infrastructure observation, right? But yeah, no, and other people have made serious noises in states like Oregon, Washington State, and Northern Cali. Saying no, we will secede. Now, I don't know how serious they are, but they're big. They're serious enough people. You know. I'll tell you something else. Here's how this script goes. See, we've had all the Supreme Court justices realign their benches. You know about that, right?
I've heard some things. You know what I mean, as far as shit's concerned.
Well, I can also tell you this is why there's some reason that, you know, things like the Texas thing you're talking about and a couple of others, they do matter. And I don't want to overtalk you, but okay, there's 9 federal circuits and 9 Supreme Court justices, and they normally have kind of which circuit is going to be your circuit, and they were recently within the last few weeks reshuffled. So basically Republican appointed justices will be the ones overseeing the circuits where the states are being contested. So now we have a new I don't remember the names, but like Clarence Thomas is in charge of Georgia now. He wasn't before. That just wasn't his seat, even though he's from there.
Yeah, there's I think there's Antonin Scalia.
Scalia got moved, and by the way, Ted Cruz has offered to represent the state of Pennsylvania somehow in some. I would have to go look Google online, but Ted Cruz is offering to lead the charge in your home state, even though he's not from there. He's from Texas. Go figure. I don't even know what that means. Maybe you'll be able to analyze that for me.
He's a lawyer. He said he represent Pennsylvania as a lawyer in the state.
So this is the states going to the Supreme Court, and justices have been shuffled now from a pro-Trump.
Well, because the Republicans. Well, all right. So, all right. Our state house.
Be hearing you, I believe.
Our what?
Sorry, excuse me.
I said so. The state houses in Pennsylvania passed laws that said how the election was supposed to go, and then the PA election people who were right underneath the governor, who's a Democrat out of Philadelphia, decided that they're just going to do whatever the fuck it is they want, and they're not going to respect what the fuck the state law passed before the election.
Yeah. However, I don't understand all the ins and outs of Pennsylvania politics. But apparently some action is going to be taken. So
Pennsylvania is pretty easy to understand. All right, here it's very simple. Pennsylvania is very basic to understand. We have Philadelphia and Pittsburgh on the sides, and then what they call Pennsyltucky in the middle, right?
Huh.
The rest of the state is pretty much all red except Philadelphia and fucking Pittsburgh. And that's that's the basics of the state politics, right? So, in the center of the state's one of the largest transportation infrastructure centers in the world, right? And then the rest of it's all heavy duty agricultural and industrial.
Okay, and so right. I know that's the basics of Pennsylvania, and that's why it's powerful and why it's still a stronghold and actually desirable. But in terms of your constitutional structure...
Oh, our Constitution predates the U.S. Constitution.
I understand that parts of it do, just like Virginia and a few others. But nevertheless, okay, here's what I understand, but you're going to help me fill in a gap, because I've been told both that, well, first off, constitutionally, I know it is absolutely true. Choice of the electors ultimately falls to the legislature. I have both heard that the legislature has just shut down and we're just done, and so we're done and shut up, and this is what we're doing. And then now, but I'm also hearing confusing stories like, no, that just ain't so quite exactly true, and I don't understand how Ted Cruz can represent your state if, as I've been told, the legislature has said, no, we're closed down, we're done, we're not hearing this.
Well, no, because the legislature's not hearing shit. So the legislators of Pennsylvania passed the law, right? About what was going to happen during the mail-in ballots with Pennsylvania and the coronavirus, when it was supposed to be accepted and when it was supposed to stop. And so the PA elections general person or whatever, right, like the person who's actually in charge of the elections themselves, stood here and decided that they were going to do whatever they wanted. And they said, fuck the state law. And so they kept accepting fucking mail-in ballots forever. Right? I mean, no postmarks, no fucking addresses, no anything, no names on them. They just accepted whatever. And they decided that all those ballots are legal. Right?
Right.
So Pennsylvania, I want to say, like, not the legislature, but like certain legislatures decided to take that to court. Right, and they took it to the PA Supreme Court, which is stacked with a bunch of activist fucking judges, and they told them to fuck off. And so now they kicked it up to the Supreme Court, where Ted Cruz wants to represent the Pennsylvania legislature against the fucking executive branch of the Pennsylvania state government.
Okay, but wait a minute. How can he represent the state legislature? Is what I am confused
because he's a lawyer. He's a lawyer.
No. I mean, legislature's not in session. Who's hiring him? Who?
Because it's a private lawsuit. It's not being.
It's a private lawsuit. Okay, so they can file a private lawsuit on behalf of the people of Pennsylvania. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, as general electors, right? As a general citizen, fucking voicing their concerns over the election.
Okay. So that's, but it would be people of Pennsylvania versus somehow.
Yeah.
That just it sounds wrong to me somehow. Like, okay, but I don't understand at this level of Supreme Court activism. I don't know. Apparently, this is legal because also there's this Sydney, what's her name, running around, the Release the Kraken lady, who's also filing private lawsuits that are going after people all over the place. And I just know that ultimately U.S. Supreme Court justices favorable to the Republican Party are, now the ones who will be hearing all of this shit in all of the affected states. And that, there's exactly two ways of looking at that. If you dial out of your own personal perspective, on one hand, that looks, look, the patriarchs are taking back the system from the globalists. And from the other perspective, it looks like, see, we told you the Republicans were going to try to stage a coup. It's the way my fire, the Reichstag fire, Trump, Hitler. That is going to be the psychology of people.
Well, yeah, because, they've been told that Trump is Hitler by CNN for the past 4 fucking years.
Oh, yeah, and Fox News has turned on them. The entirety of the press, even a lot of the conservative press, has turned on Trump.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed that either.
Well, that's to be expected. That's what, all right. So
it's all I know. So
well, this is where our perspectives kind of they come together and separate in different places, right? So you stand, like you and a lot of other people, as far as shit's concerned, was like, this is all about China and da 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 da. And I'm standing here and I'm going, what everybody needs to understand is that Trump is fucking with a lot of people, right? And it's because he's doing what the people want, right? Well, all right, he's doing what we want as far as shit's concerned, as tax-paying citizens. Like he's representing taxpayers, right? No, okay, with the things that we're talking about, with like the politics that we're talking about at the moment, right? He's representing the taxpayers. So basically, what he's doing is he's taking away the American security guarantee for the world, right? And he's telling the world that, look, this World War II fucking order that we have in place that has kept all this peace and bullshit, that's completely and utterly funded and fucking done by the United States of America, needs to fucking stop because we're damn near bankrupt, right? And we're not receiving any real... what's the word I'm looking for here? We're not receiving any real...
it's a bad deal. It's a bad deal. The American taxpayers have been fucked over paying the world's policing force. And he has at least talked a good game about us doing less of that. I'm not quite as optimistic about what's really happening there, but I see your point there that he's doing that to some extent. But what I'm doing is dialing up to a macro level and saying, look, if this shit was happening in any other country, we'd call it what it is. It's nationalists versus communists again. It's Venezuela.
Well, it's not though. It's not. This isn't nationalists versus communists.
Why? Because the nationalists are always like, we're for the common people and the everyday taxpayer. That's how that script plays.
Well, no, it's not. It's not nationalist versus communist, right? It's really not. Like, so what it is
it's Pinochet in Chile.
This is corporatists versus fucking nationalists. Is what this is, right? It's not communist, right? It's literally not communist.
Well, see, all right, and maybe that's just because you and I differ. Because I see corporatism and communism as flip sides of a coin, and so that's
No, like yo, I
you know,
see,
we
I
just have
see
the
the
language
dumb
difference.
masses, like I see the dumb young
Oh
masses as
yeah,
the foot soldiers, like, and
they
they're pressing them into communism and progressivism, right?
or in the corporate drone jobs, which are just as bad.
Yeah, like yo, BLM and all this shit isn't real.
Oh, oh no, oh yeah, oh no. In fact, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, sometimes I just think you think we're diverging when we're just looking from through a different lens,
Oh
from a
yeah,
slightly
yeah.
different perspective. All these people are going to get slaughtered for the
Well,
most part. The
I don't think
BLM
like,
people,
and here's my other
well,
thing.
no, not necessarily slaughtered, but some slaughtered or just kicked to the curb. I mean, they
Yeah,
are
yeah,
just used for
that's
drones.
yeah. See, we got to use the correct language here because like
Most will be
a
killed.
lot of that shit, like yo, that's the shit that aggravates me because I go, they're
You don't
not.
think it'll get that extreme, really?
No, we're not there.
Yeah. Okay.
Like we're not
All
there.
right.
Like
All right.
we are there. There's no
Well,
political will for that.
oh man, it only takes a certain percent of the population to be crazy enough. Look at what has already happened to New York City. Look at what has already happened in some of the
And
cities. I mean,
I got
come
you.
on.
And they're not happy about it, right? Most of the people are fucking miserable
I,
about this shit.
well, I know.
The only people who are okay with any of this are white women.
Oh God. You know, that gets to a time, and I don't know if we can get into it tonight because you and I have to have a conversation about the word white, because we have because that word has multiple connotations. And it took me a couple of times for me to get which connotation you meant when you said that, because there are three or four ways of using the word white, which are correct in various processes that are not the same. And white culture, I think, when you refer to things as white, you mean also what black people, like real black people, like from Detroit or from the south side of Chicago, mean when they say white people. And that's a real specific, almost artificial demographic, which in reality, I've only like had one foot in that world half my life and one foot in the downtrodden
Again,
general
yeah. There. See, here's the thing,
side of
right?
life.
Like, okay,
Yeah.
so it's
Like I'd like black people from Detroit if they
me
don't
too.
hate white people, and I'm not, you know, because I think a lot more like them,
Yes,
and I think a lot more like a lot of so-called rednecks or hillbillies
I like the
or
poor.
really just
I
yeah,
much
I do
rather
too.
deal with the impoverished than deal with middle
Yeah,
class yuppie
yeah.
white Americans, right? And
It's a fake identity in a lot of ways,
it, you know,
and so
it's a
yeah, so
it's an identity of what's the word I'm looking for here? Consumptionism.
yeah, and it's also been imposed on us through like E. Michael Jones, who's a guy I really recommend listening to, has talked about this and a few others. I mean, it was introduced through television and it was introduced through mass media, and we became, consumerist society was sold to us. Now we bought it, but it was sold to us, and sometimes it was also not as much of a choice as we thought, you know, like the economic pressures that pushed so-called white people into the suburbs and to start calling themselves white in the first place were pretty artificial, you know. And you know, we had mass media telling us what whiteness was,
Well, think
you
about
know,
it.
when we used
Think
to
about it
be,
this way, right? Here's a good
yeah.
measure, right? Here's a really good measure. It would be
Yeah.
people that 1920s eugenicists would leave alone.
Yeah, or use. Yes, because they would be very pliable. Yeah, and I
Like,
even think it goes right into the whole, you know, like white guilt is an imposed thing, and it's a useful thing because it lets a certain upper class of people who look pretty white to me just getting to basically kick around poor white people and treat them like dirt.
you talking about the sons of Abraham and whatnot.
Oh no, no! I mean, really, like fucking yuppie, snooty, what we used to call WASPs, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants.
That's what
Nobody knows
that's
what
those.
that means.
These are the
Nobody
people
knows what
I
that
blame.
means.
Like these are our ultimate enemies right now. That's
Well,
who all
their
this shit's coming
grandchildren
from.
are the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants of the '70s. um, those people stop being Protestant and just their grandchildren are secularists now and don't really believe in God or religion much, but they have inherited that snooty upper class white ass wasp mentality about this love my smell of my own farts. We're here to better mankind because we're so benevolent in who we are without even the Christian basis to go with it. So they either become these snooty social justice liberally types or these Mitt Romney clone Republican types, and they're divorced from the reality of the common masses that each claims to represent. Trump, probably the biggest difference you and I see between Trump is I think that Trump has some friends that are really don't have America's interests in mind, and that includes Israel. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
and I'm not an anti-Semite. I got a lot of Jewish friends on my side
Well,
on that one.
I always say we
Um,
should move Israel to Brazil. Like that's always
oh
in
my
my mentality.
God, yeah, that would be funny, wouldn't it?
Just in jet, like, yo, it's a safe place. It's in this hemisphere.
But
It's fucking
let me
nice.
say, let me just say some of what you say about Trump, and it's what all my friends and family who really love Trump, and I really love them, and I'm not condescending to anybody, but I'm like, he has something that for thousands of years has been called the commoner's touch. Just to say, he actually does not come from impoverishment and never did. And, he's married into some very wealthy people as well as you know, uh, made his own connections, and they're not all nice connections. But he has what they call the commoner's touch. Working class people tend to instinctively like him, always have.
Mhm.
His narcissism amuses them, and also just his way of speaking and his brashness. Working class people, if they liked him, always liked him, even back when he was doing World Wrestling Federation shit and stuff like that.
Like here's the
And
thing. Here's the thing about Trump. Trump is one of the guys that you would play football with coming up in Little League.
well, see, you feel that way about him, but maybe I sound more cynical. But I'm almost like, okay, but that is a crafted media image.
No, it's
He's
not. Yo, he
aware.
literally like yo when
He's
yo.
aware.
Have you
He's
ever heard the
aware.
stories about
The
him
strings he
fucking?
plays to.
Have you
Okay.
ever? No, no. Have you ever heard the stories of him being in boys' school? Like when he got sent away and got sent to like the prep schools or whatever he went to, right? And
Yeah.
they went to like all these all boys schools or whatever it was. And Trump
Yeah.
was a fucking savage. Like he just beat the shit out of people and was a fucking asshole most of the time. Like he was well liked, but like he was a fucking monster, right? And that's what he is literally. He's literally one of us. Right, he's just fortunate enough to be
You.
born to rich parents, and he never went into Wall Street.
Yeah.
He never went into like any like the bullshit. He never fucking got into the
No,
technical aspect of
I
shit.
mean, his daddy did give him some really big fucking real estate to play with just to get started
Oh
with.
yeah,
It wasn't nothing small. But okay, but I'm getting to oh man, I do not condescend. I hate condescending to anybody, so I don't want to come off that way. But I would encourage you to see he's aware of what his media image is. This is a smart man who does play 4D chess. He's aware of what his media image is, and he does cultivate it. And you can see the brilliance of it sometimes. Okay, but
okay.
it is
All right,
crafted.
all right. So hang on.
And
Let me
you
put
gotta know
this.
that.
Let me put this way. I've worked in corporate offices, right?
Sure,
And
sure.
I've dealt with guys like Trump, right? And
Okay.
like guys who came from money. You know what I'm saying? I've dealt with a lot of people
It
who have
came from
came
money,
from
right?
money, right? And
Right.
let me be honest with you here, okay? I used to work at a place and there was a dude, he was a boss. I'm not going to mention his name because, what I'm saying, he is a fucking big shot in the world as a whole, right?
Okay.
And
Can you get me some money? No, anyway.
right? This dude here though, legit, right? So it was between me and my boss, who my boss was from. He came from money. His dad was a doctor, but this dude here played
Right.
college ball. And if you ever seen, like, I have a picture of him. He died. Fucking great guy. One of my mentors, right? As a dude,
Right.
he sat here and he showed me pictures of him. You know what I'm saying? As a kid with his jersey on and shit, right? When he first met his wife. And he was a big, savage-looking motherfucker, right? And the way he moved, the way he walked, the way he talked, the way he handled himself was as if and the things that he knew and the stories he told about, like going to the strip club and fucking getting, getting busted with coke on a DUI with the stripper and his wife coming to bail him out, right? He was a dude. But now this guy who was above him would come down, and this dude was such a worthless piece of fucking human excrement, like as a man. And I compare him to Trump, and like, because they both came from fucking real money. Like, this dude came from real scratch. Like, old school, like, I'm talking like Trump type of scratch in Europe. Like, real scratch. Right? And this dude here, he was a worthless fuck. Right? But Trump's the type of guy who is not that worthless fuck. Right? Because I have something to compare Trump to in the aspects of him being a leader, because this is what this dude did. He was in leadership. You know what I mean?
All right. So you've seen enough, and I respect that point of view. The only thing I'd say is I think you will concede to me that a man of that caliber is also intensely aware of his media image, and he plays the role he wishes to play in business negotiations. He's a different man in private than he is on his Twitter feed. He's actually brilliant with his Twitter feed. One of the stupidest things I ever saw the press going after Trump for. Literally, it's like, how can you dumb fucks be this dumb? Oh, because you're really this dumb. They went after him because an analysis showed that it is on his Twitter feed, and in some of his remarks, but especially on his Twitter feed, he speaks at approximately a 4th grade level, indicating, of course, that Trump is stupid.
No, he speaks to the dumbest.
Oh, you stupid motherfucker. No, he is. No, you don't even say he's speaking to the dumbest people. He is speaking in a way that absolutely nobody can mistake his intent at all. A 12-year-old would get that. A 50-year-old would get that. They know exactly what he's saying. And quite frequently, and he's good at that, he says things in a way that he knows that working class people will really laugh at.
Yeah.
And the press has no idea what they get it wrong. It's so hilarious to watch how he plays the press. He's a very calculated man. I mean, I don't think everything he does is 4D chess, but he does play 4D chess.
All right. So with Trump, and here's where you got to compare Trump to guys like Bill Kristol, right? And
oh man.
Yeah. That's where you have to make the comparison. Right?
Oh, you just won on that. I used to kind of like him too.
I fucking hate Bill Kristol. Like legit, I'm not joking at all. Like if I ran into Bill Kristol in the street and like it was just me, I'd punch him in the face. Like just off of fucking general purpose. I really don't like that guy. Like that guy there, that is who we're fighting against.
I know he is. And the thing is that 15 years ago, I was in a very different place. I really was. And I kind of liked the neocons because I thought they were talking sense, because there was a time when it sounded like they were talking sense. They weren't. They were lying snakes. And we know that now. But I mean, there really was a case to say, hey, we're going to make Iraq a democracy. And people used to laugh at that, but I'm like, well, we did it in Germany. We did it in South Korea. We did it in Japan. Sounded like a good plan, but they were a bunch of lying snake motherfuckers on all of it. And yeah, but he had me fooled for a while. He just seemed like a nice guy making good arguments. Well, no, what a piece of shit, man. I hate to talk that way. I shouldn't talk like that as a Christian, but that's the thing. We've had these people, and I know you know this, these people called so-called conservatives for the longest time who have never had the U.S.'s interest in mind at all.
Oh, absolutely.
And that goes back to George W. Bush and the whole neocon establishment, and George H.W. for that matter.
Okay, here's the thing about George H.W. Bush, like the original, right? Now, George H.W. Bush, he was probably the best president we could have asked for at that moment, right? For where he was. Like, there was never a better president, right? Legitimately, never a better president elected for the time that they were elected. Now I know,
But
like the
like you mean
CIA and fucking Prescott
you mean
Bush and Skull and Bones and fucking
okay, so
Bohemian
you know
Grove and all that shit. Think about it this way, all right? Now, and when George Bush came into office, the USSR was falling down, right?
well,
Would
here's what I
you
would say.
name a single person in the world who had a better grasp of foreign relations at that point than George
All right.
H.W. Bush?
Here's the way I put it, and we may disagree here because I too take the although again I think there's something really wrong with Alex Jones and he's not reliable and hasn't been for a long time. I do think these people take their bloodline seriously, their family connections seriously, and the secret society shit does matter. That said, those people have been affecting our influences, our elections all along. So you might be right that the other skull and bonesman that he ran against or whatever, the other corporate stooge that he ran against would have been worse. I mean, it does still matter which of them gets elected. Although, I really do think certain agendas go forward regardless of who gets elected. So I don't know. I mean, was he a statesman or, did he see why the Soviet Union was collapsing and just, I don't know. I go back and forth, but he's responsible for a lot of bad stuff. So maybe we could have that for another
Okay,
conversation.
well, no, but I'm saying, no, on a foreign relations basis, right? The guy who had served in the fucking CIA, the head of the CIA, the individual who was fucking ambassador to the fucking UN, the guy who was the
Yeah,
ambassador to fucking Russia, the guy who was the ambassador to motherfucking China, the guy who
he
was
was
the
the globalist.
ambassador. Well, I
He
understand
was
he
the
was a
globalist
globalist,
corporatist.
but on the same
We were
point,
going to get one anyway.
when
Yeah.
when the world was literally falling apart and it could have went anyway. Like, I mean, like, it could have gone any fucking way. Like, there was no controlling the manner in which that shit fell the fuck down if the block started tumbling wrong. Who else would you have wanted in there?
I don't know.
Exactly. I mean, that's kind of the point, right?
I'm trying. Well, wait a minute. I'm backing myself up and saying I'm trying to remember who because I voted in this election, man.
Yeah.
In fact, that was my second election. I voted in '84 for Mondale, and I voted in '88 for Dukakis. And you're going to tell me Mike Dukakis would have been a disaster? Why? I don't know. Why would he have been a disaster?
Well, because what I'm saying, he had zero foreign relations abilities, and he had no
No.
decent experience about things. Like
He would
Dukakis
have
was.
had people advising him, but whatever.
I
Yeah,
mean,
okay, maybe.
like really, like as far as a leader's concerned, there was nobody better to pick than George H.W.
Maybe.
Bush at that point.
He certainly was. He certainly was. I'm sorry, able to forward a globalist, corporatist agenda and help with what I continue to see as a merger of communism with corporatism. Oh, and help cement those relations that China and these trade relations that Trump is fighting now or perceived as fighting. So I got to go back and forth with you on that one, man. But overall, where we're agreed is these trade deals really were
Oh, they were
that
awful.
all these presidents did. They were awful. And, we destroyed our manufacturing base in order to get cheap labor from China, for slave labor from China, really. We're paying the cost now. Fucking, I part of me feels sorry for the boomers because I was even sucked into some of this madness for a while, right? I was like, I said capitalism, yay, and I didn't really, the
Well,
capitalism in my head
capitalism's
was not
good.
what was coming in. Was
Capitalism's
not what was
good.
coming
This is
in.
not this
Well,
is not capitalism.
let's not argue over the words. What they were telling us with capitalism was not what
Well,
they were telling
again,
us
I
it
get
was.
like
It
here's
wasn't.
like I immediately knew.
So
I knew at fucking 19 years old. I immediately saw this. Like, it was just bow. Nobody had to tell me this. Nobody had to explain this to me. I immediately knew they were using fucking cheap labor to cover up the fact that the dollar was worthless. I immediately knew this.
yeah,
And like, I don't understand why like
I
everybody immediately don't see that. Like, why they don't go,
what I did
You know
What
what I
I
mean?
did not see was what they were saying in the name of free markets and and competition. They love these words: free markets, competition, and capitalism. And in reality, it was monopolistic takeover. It was a merger of corporatism and communism. Hell, even what comes, the feminism and the HR departments come out of fucking China for the most part.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Um,
like, the fucking
and
the feminist bullshit, like the ideology of hiring females was nothing more than to get the wages down for the dudes.
That's exactly correct. I mean, there were people even bragged of that, and the way they did it was through basically Marxist propaganda maneuvers to convince women that this is what they wanted. I mean, they literally talk. Most women, even to this day, secretly would rather be working part time or not at all, would rather be at home with kids. That's actually still the truth. But they always phrase it in this backwards way of, well, they need to be liberated and go out into the workforce. Oh, and now they'll need daycare. Wait a minute. It used to be at home. We actually used to have a tax and an industrial base that was favorable to that.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I mean, like, and on top of that, like, if the woman had to go to work because you were impoverished, like, usually grandma was there to watch the kids. Like, that usually tended to be how it worked. And today,
yeah,
I'll be
or
honest with
mama
you.
took it, or
Good.
mama would get a babysitting job, or mama would take in laundry, or would get a part-time job at the store down the street. But whatever, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, like, yo, and today, like, here's the real bitch: is the boomers don't want to be grandparents.
It's horrifying. I can't. That's the worst thing about them. They were taught narcissism even before the millennials, and really, like I said, I was talking to some of this brainwashing. I believe this free market economics rhetoric that they were using, but it was fake, and I didn't see that. And a lot of the boomers who are not socialists are in this fairy tale. They still think it's all working. That everything's great in China, and that
Well, I don't
that
think they think anything.
everything's just TV
Do you
works,
think
and
they think?
they you think well, a lot of them. Okay, a lot of boomers are not stupid. Let's be honest.
No,
We
no, no, no.
generalize
They're
about
they're dumber than a
but
bag of hammers.
a lot of them are dumber than a bag of hammers, and they were the first ones kind of fucked up by the whole consumerist mentality, and the me generation and all that stuff. They were taught that this was liberation and this was the future, and the only value. And this is the white people you're talking about, basically.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they were taught that the basic ethic is be cool with people, be nice to people, and that really isn't it. And the ultimate sin is not being nice. And that sort of sounds rooted in a Christian value concept, but it's really not at all. It just sounds like it. Just be nice and kind and
Well,
gentle to
yeah. I
people. Be
mean,
cool
like, you
with
have
people.
you have a lot of people who think that, like,
And
civility
it's
is the
fake. And it's
utmost.
fake. It's fake. In fact, it gets raised to the utmost. I heard a guy call it once. They're civility fascists.
Yeah, I
Civility
mean, and this is,
fascists.
and these are the women. These are in particular the women, right? Like the
Well,
dudes.
that's what it does. Yeah.
I mean, like the dudes. When you run into a dude and, like, like, they start feeling some sort of kind of way about guys talking shit, like, that dude there tends to be chastised by other men, right? For the most part. Like, if a guy comes in and goes,
All right.
"Oh man, fucking, y'all shouldn't be motherfucking standing here talking this way in this environment," or whatever, all the other dudes look at him and like he's like some type of fucking Nazi, right? Because that's how dudes feel about that shit.
Yeah.
Right now, women, on the other hand, you know what I mean? They go, "Oh, you're right," right, and fucking, like, they hug it out or whatever the case might be. Like, that's their natural mentality. Like, that's how it is they live. And the boomers as a whole, like, God, are they a worthless fucking generation? Jesus fucking Christ! Like, even their
No,
attitudes towards fucking women are just
they're
bafflingly dumb. Like, I've had my father and his friends stand here and go, like, "Oh, you don't want your fucking girl to be equal to you and have a job?" No,
And it's
no, you dumb
no,
fuck.
they say it backwards. No, oh my God, here's even the worst of it. But okay, first I'm going to say I'm going to resist. We've got to stop calling them boomers. They're a specific segment of that age group because there have been honorable boomers who have just kept their damn jobs and frankly kept going to church and meant it, and kept just putting their heads down and trying to raise their families, and that's
Yeah,
all
but
they
they're
ever
but they're
wanted.
as
And then
much a part of the problem as the
there's
ones that
more
we're mentioning.
because they were struggling with a system they didn't like and didn't want anything to do with.
Because they
I mean,
were
I
they
know
were they would literally fight for the status quo.
sometimes they would. Yeah, there is that.
That's
There is
why. Like, yo,
definitely a
because
lot of
this
that.
the status quo serves them.
That well, and there's been too much. There's been way too much of that, right? And so I'll give you that. Again, they were seduced into it, and they keep being told that this is sustainable when it's not. But yeah, they are leaving their kids nothing. And I got to be honest. Again, this is only I know some real deep-rooted people that are holding on to real family values, and it's hard because the system is stacked against them. Okay, so and I don't want them all to be blamed because they never let go of those family values. They got it torn away from them. But that said, there's this segment of these waspy, what you call white compassion fascists, middle class, and have left their kids with nothing and even think that that's a nice thing, good thing. My own dad did that to me and my sister.
Well,
He seemed proud of it,
like,
you
yeah, like
know.
my dad's gonna leave me a bill. Like, like I get that mentality, right? And like, I'll be
Uh-huh.
honest, like my family. All right, so there's a lot of wealth in my mom's side of the family, right? A lot of wealth, like a lot of wealth,
Yeah.
right? But like when my grandfather died, we were cut off. Right,
Yeah,
so
I'm
like
sorry to
we'll
hear.
never, yeah, it happens. Right, we'll never see any of that. You know what I mean? Because my grandfather went to jail. Because my grandfather, you know what I'm saying, was, you know what I mean, the dude who, you know, paid for
Oh,
my other his brother's colleges and shit. You know what I mean? Same as me. It's like, yeah, I was out here hustling and grinding and, you know what I mean, breaking motherfuckers and shit to make sure that my sister went to the exchange program and that she spoke 7 languages and that everybody did what they were supposed to fucking do. You know what I mean? But like, yo, that shit isn't appreciated later in life when, you know what I mean, I'm still stuck in the struggle and the rest of y'all motherfuckers is, you know what I mean, living your happy life. And here's like, yo, my sister, like, here's my really, really big problem, right? My sister legit, like, yo, she wants to be white so bad she paints her face, right? So she
wow.
doesn't look Mediterranean.
That's a pretense though that may not really serve her in the long run. But I want to get back to another thing though that I really want to mention because I think boomer bashing gets out of control and it can make us cruel to old people that don't deserve it, who really
No,
didn't ask for
no,
any
they
of
all
this.
deserve it.
Let me give you a point. Well, okay, then we deserve what's happening to us
No, no, we don't,
because
because
I
like, yo, we've been
witnessed
fighting the whole time. I've been fighting since I was 18. Since I was old enough to vote, I've been fighting against this system. I was what? I was, hang on, I'm trying to think here. I was, shit, so, fuck, 83 to fucking 2003 be 20, so another 5 years. I was 25. I was at the motherfucking Tea Party and shit. Legit, on the Potomac with Ron Paul.
that's pretty damn cool. But I mean, that was all astroturfed. A lot of it. Well, not entirely, but a lot. But let
Well,
me get
no,
to a point.
not the Ron Paul
Oh,
shit, the Glenn Beck shit was.
it definitely was.
Right, the
Yeah,
Ron
Ron
Paul
Paul
shit
seemed
was
to be
just, yo, that was a natural spring up of fucking libertarians and individuals who wanted to
I
follow Ron
actually
Paul because
agree
of the
with
internet.
you. Yeah, I actually agree with you that he was probably mostly organic. But let me get to a point I want to make to you about the parts of the boomer generation that get kicked around that I genuinely think don't deserve it because I witnessed it. And these were people who were made promises that got their jobs in manufacturing taken from them. Their kids got nothing because tons of them got their jobs destroyed that they thought were going to be good jobs because they were shipped overseas. And I remember very vividly a time in the 1990s when this was hitting hard in the Detroit area because tons of workers, not just at the auto plants, but at, all the associated industries around the auto plants were just being decimated again. And part of, pension and other promises that were made that, you could say they were selfish, but they were promised things, and they were promised things that they were just abrogated on. and they were offered things like, "Oh, look, we'll offer you free retraining, so you can get new skills in the job market of today." And I worked at a computer training company, and I was trying to train 55-year-old men to use a computer, and you know what? But some of them just couldn't do it and never would be able to, and they had no future anymore. Boom! It was just gone, and nothing new for them to do, or any skill sets that they were ready to develop. And these were working class people who worked hard, and that was a ton of these so-called boomers. Now maybe some of them have fallen prey to that disability mentality, give me stuff, but I mean, that cost of the manufacturing base did hit a lot of people in that age group. Now, actually,
I
it
know
got,
it did, right? I know it did, and it hit their kids. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? It
they
hit
didn't
all of us.
know.
Like
They
I was
didn't
there.
know. We didn't. Yeah, we both were, and I saw it a little further back than you, obviously. But I'm not trying to brag. But I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
a lot
I
of us
got you.
people,
Like
we
I
really
grew up. I grew up in the Reagan era, right when that shit was at its fucking peak. I watched my fucking city go from this nice place where you know what I mean you could raise kids and all this bullshit to a fucking ghetto slum full of fucking crackheads and
right,
robber and thieves and burglars and gangs and
right,
violence and
and
city and buildings falling down
can't
and
put that on all the people who were in their 30s and 40s at that time. It
you
was
can
happening.
too. No, you can too because they voted for fucking bullshit. Because they believed in guys like George Carlin and Richard Pryor. Well, not Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor was a shit. They believed in guys like George Carlin and Bill Hicks and these garbage human beings who should never ever have had the opportunity to sit here and fucking spout off their fucking commie bullshit, and we just fed into it and just fed into it and fed into it and believed it and thought it was a good idea, and it's fucking terrible, and it destroyed our fucking city. It's destroyed our
You know,
civilization.
I don't know about Bill Hicks, but as for the rest, yeah, I generally see what you're talking about, the erosion of a lot of the comedians of that era. And I was the Gen Xers who thought being that kind of cynical and hip was cool. And the ones who they tried to start awkwardly imposing this identity they called white on us. But I'm old enough as a Gen Xer to realize, no, I still remember when people like, what the fuck is white? What is it? We don't even know. People used to be, Irish Catholic or Lithuanian or Polish, or and their religion and their culture was all tied in. And then they had this diaspora into the suburbs, and all got these sheep, these houses, but like everybody's disconnected now. Everybody's dozens or hundreds of miles away. Nobody sees each other on a daily basis in terms of family. And it didn't used to be that way. They used to have ethnic enclaves, and that went pop in the 70s. And it happened again when we had these. Every time there's one of these big economic dislocations, we see it again. I mean, how do you blame the baby boomer, the auto worker who really did work his trade and work hard, like my children's grandfather, Gene Kondrachek, came over here in the 1960s from Poland, would technically be considered a baby boomer, except, of course, he immigrated. But I mean, he grew up under both Nazis and communists in Poland, came here to get a job, got a good union job. Even though he got a good union job, he loved Richard Nixon because he actually met Richard Nixon and liked him. Got to be his chauffeur. But anyway, worked his whole ass off. The union was good to him. But he also worked his ass off, and he would work lots of overtime. He would do everything for his family. He built a second house, literally, practically built it from the ground up out in the country. Worked his ass off just to build and provide for his family. I can't blame that guy. He would technically be a boomer. So that's all I'm saying is I've seen a
Let
lot
me
of
let me
boomers
let
who
me
just
let me all right, let me tell you why. All right, so like my family came here in the 1920s, right? And
okay,
you know,
okay,
both sides of my family. And my dad's side of the family went to Pittsburgh and West Virginia and worked in the coal mines and in the steel mills. My mom's side of the family moved actually up to they came through Brazil because they couldn't legally come here as Italians. So they went through Brazil and then came up, to like Watertown, New York, and then moved down basically to where we are today, and opened up restaurant. Actually, they worked in the steel mills, same mills that I worked in, right? Me and my great grandfather worked in the same mill, right? And they saved up money and stood here and built restaurants, and they opened up 3 or 4 restaurants, and they had them up until the 2000s even, right? And as I said, there's money in this. My great grandfather's sons opened up fucking real estate agencies and more restaurants and things of this nature. My dad's side of the family, they ended up being union coal miners and union organizers. They got buried inside of the mines, right? Today, believe it or not, I was sitting here listening to John Denver's West Virginia with tears running down my face thinking about that shit, right? Because I got a real deep connection to like fucking, the goddamn mountains and shit. And so, like, these individuals here, though, they never did the math. Right? Like, nobody ever did the math. Unlike us, like, we immediately do the math because we're like, this shit's gonna run out, right? And they never did the fucking math. Like, nobody, like, none of these boomers went and screamed at the top of their fucking lungs, goddamn, it's gonna go bankrupt and we're gonna end up fucking our fucking grandkids. Like, nobody fucking did this shit. They didn't care.
No, but again, there were guys they were actually boomers all along screaming that way. They weren't getting into the mainstream press. They were screamed down and accused of being liars, like Ron Paul. Ron Paul's a boomer. There were people in that age group all along calling foul. I knew as far back as the 80s, even though I was a liberal for a while because I was a Democrat for a while. By the early 90s, by my mid 20s or so, I'm trying to do the math, but certainly I figured out, oh, wait a minute, Social Security. By 1992, I can say, oh, yeah, Social Security can't be sustainable because it can't.
Yeah, I was anti-war, right? Like, I was cool with the war, and I even tried to sign up at 18, right? And it didn't work out, because I got fucking injuries from fucking sports. But
oh, right, okay. So you mean you actually were picking fights in custody? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, I my arm broke in 6 places and shit, and my wrists don't work, right? It only bends back 30 degrees, so I couldn't do a proper push up, right? According to them. Yeah, so that's a bit of a no-no for them. But so I tried to go in, and I was always after about 2 years, I started hearing rumblings of fucking why the fuck are we in Iraq when all these people from Saudi Arabia, I'm in PA, so Shanksville and New York and the Pentagon, it's all real nice, real close to me, all this shit, I'm over here listening to all these again, I was in the conspiracy theories, I was on the internet early, and I was standing here communicating with guys, and we were talking about this type of shit and wondering what was going on, and the fucking building 7 and all this stuff, and it eventually led me to the point where I'm like, why the fuck are we in Iraq and Afghanistan when Saudi Arabia is the main problem? And so I became anti-war, so I ended up voting for John Kerry, right? Because he was the anti-war candidate in 2004,
right?
And then Ron Paul in 2008 because he was the only nigga who wanted to end the wars. Right.
And it was funny. We were on opposite sides of that, but I'll tell my side of that. You can finish your story.
No, yeah, and that's I started I actually started writing a book, and I got through all this shit, and I started this YouTube channel about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, really, trying to get the message out here about libertarian ideologies, but I'm not a fucking fan of the Libertarian Party anymore. I think it's fucking trash. I'm thinking about starting a party called the Leave Me the Fuck Alone Party. I think it might do well, legit. If we can just because that's a very basic premise, is the Leave Me Alone Party, right? Let me have my family, my guns, my job, and my community, and you go fuck off, right? That's what I'm thinking. You know what I mean?
Well, that would be nice. But let me just tell you my little journey, which is probably similar. But at least during again, I was older. I had recently become a father. I was also suddenly, I had been, my whole life had been in the IT industry, and the dot-com bubble burst completely destroyed everything I thought what my future was going to look like. And I was at home and between jobs, which I've only been between jobs a couple, three times in my life, but I've always worked since I was 15. And I was at home and obsessively watching it. Basically, got given PTSD like a lot of the country on the 9/11 thing. No, but I was very patriotic. I was very much a Bush supporter. I hated Kerry. I've campaigned against him. I defended Bush. But I did not, there's this narrative that got started like, oh, we went because of weapons of mass destruction. No, that's not why I supported it. And I did work as a blogger and a journalist, and I saw how Democrats and the left were lying about the effort in Iraq. But it didn't come to me till later that I was that the Republicans and Bush were also lying. But my reason for supporting that war is because I believed that this line of narrative, which was part of the neocon narrative, they were just lying, which is that okay, the Soviet Union's gone, communism has collapsed. Because of the fight against communism, we had to support all these horrible Middle East dictators. And the original Bush doctrine from George W. Bush was we're going to stop supporting Middle East dictators and we're going to establish democracies. And people scoffed at that and said that's bullshit. But it's like, no, it's not bullshit. We did it in South Korea. We did it in Japan. We did it in Europe. People who claimed it is impossible were lying. What I witnessed is that they actually sabotaged those efforts and made sure it didn't happen that way. And I saw that from contacts I had all over the place, actually around the world. I was talking at one point to people in the State Department, in the DOD. I was also being manipulated by spooks. And so when people talk to me about conspiracy theories, I'm like, based on that, plus some work I've done in other areas and a journalist, no, many conspiracy theories are true. It's just a matter of, finding out what's real and what's not. I mean, I actually think you're crazy if you think at this point that the official 9/11 story is true. You don't have to know everything to know that various people knew that was coming. But in the grand scheme of things, I got red pilled on a lot of stuff and realized that no, the Republicans were lying to me. Bush lied, and he didn't just Bush lied about weapons of mass destruction, but the only way he got away with it was because Democrats were lying with him. The bigger lie, he said, is he was going to reshape Middle Eastern politics, and he didn't. Trump is. He didn't. He didn't even try. They lied to the Iraqis and the Afghans. They just wanted the opium and the oil, just like the lefties said. That's what I see now. Now, maybe you disagree, but my journey has gotten to where it's like, no, I really do think both parties are controlled by corrupt people, and I think the Hegelian ratchet is valid. I think they are moving us toward a globalist enterprise, one way or the other. It's just what flavor of globalist do you want? Because there's certain things, whether Trump wins or not, and he probably will at this point. I think he's more likely than not to stay on as president if they don't kill him. Still, a lot of bullshit's coming down. Here's
my thing. It was for me when I started writing this book, I started doing a lot of research, right, and understanding exactly what was going on because I don't like saying things that are wrong. You know what I mean? I fucking hate saying things that are wrong. So that's why every video I make, I do shit tons of fucking research for it, right? And that's why I don't put out a shit ton of content on a regular basis because it's fucking difficult to stand here and put out good content that I can be proud of long term. That is true.
Changes. And shit changes so fast. It's ridiculous.
Well, yeah, but not only that, but when we start talking about the Middle East, you have to like start adding in
have
a whole
wow.
bunch of shit that people don't really understand or comprehend. And this is where we get down into like the nitty gritty of the economic situation, which I love, right? Because it's such a beautiful, like, it was a beautiful stroke of genius what they did. Like, after the Bretton Woods fucking shit fell apart, and like France and East Germany, or France and West Germany and Switzerland and Italy tried to cash in all their fucking U.S. paper money for gold at the gold window, and the U.S. said, no, we can't do that. You know what I mean? Because, like, you're speculating, or whatever the case might be, right? And Richard Nixon tried to play it off like there were speculators speculating on fucking gold to control the price of the dollar. But the truth was is that we had printed the dollar into fucking oblivion, and we didn't respect the $35 an ounce per fucking gold that we were supposed to maintain of that, right? Which was a special window they had, and he took us off the gold standard in '72. And at the same time, he went to Saudi Arabia and he said, "Here, look, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna stand here and fucking let you use our military as we see fit, and we will make you the power of this region. But in return, what we want is we want you to only price your oil in dollars, right? And Saudi Arabia owning, you know, I mean, a quarter of the world's known fucking reserves, right? And producing more oil than anybody else on the planet, where they produce a quarter of the world's oil every day. And where the United States had actually had their wells run dry in the 1970s. You know, L. Ron Hubbard talked about this. And this is where like all that cat and fucking shit with the Jimmy Carter and all that bullshit came from. You know what I mean? And understanding all of this ideological pictures, once we ended up with the fracking ability to be able to have the opportunity to stand here and have like our country be oil independent, and we no longer had to deal with Saudi Arabia anymore, things were gonna change, because people were fucking sick of the fucking wars in the Middle East.
I agree with you, but at the same time, I see it differently, and maybe we should end here, but I'll just tell you how I see it differently and the same. Because nothing you're saying is wrong, but at the same time, the twisty relationships in the Middle East have not been what people have told us they are. You know, the truth of the matter, we've played this weird game, especially between conservatives and liberals. But the truth is, our two important allies in the in the Middle East have always been both Saudi Arabia and Israel, and those two really have been frenemies and really secret under the table allies all this time, all through the entire thing.
Well, yeah, and like you remember,
and I just want to say, you know, we have this whole idea it's a big religious conflict and bullshit. You know, Saudi princes go down to Cairo to get blowjobs and smoke and snort coke with Israelis, you know, to get business done. There's a corridor between Riyadh, Tel Aviv, and fucking you know, Washington D.C. and shit, and that's ridiculous. And some of the shuffling that's going around, I know from intel sources I have, that it's like, well, yeah, there are some realignments going on.
Like, not, yo, did you ever watch Charlie Wilson's War by chance?
Yeah, and that is a propaganda piece. But it is a very good movie.
I know, but like there's a lot of good facts in there, right? Because a lot of the facts were that like, the Saudi Arabians were fucking funding shit. Like, you know, they were fucking working with Israel to fucking, you know, I mean, put guns into fucking Afghanistan and shit.
I know that, and working with the Israelis to do it, and you can spin that as good or spin it as bad, but the truth is the chief sponsors of terrorism in the Middle East have not been Iran. It has been Saudi Arabia and Israel.
Well, that's just the truth. That's just like fucking what's happening in Turkey right now with Israel.
I know, and so it's nobody understands it all. That's the thing with I no longer believe in conspiracy theories, because a conspiracy theory is a way of saying I'm turning my brain off. No, what's better is to say, what do we know is true, and then how have we each interpreted the facts, and then how can we come to the same conclusion. The only conspiracy theory that really is dangerous is when you think you've got it all figured out. because it doesn't work. Nobody gets to figure it all out. The people running things haven't got it all
Well,
figured
yeah, I
out.
mean, what you
There's
do
certain
is you
things we
learn.
know are going on.
You learn the
Huh?
math. You learn the math equations, right? It's that's basically what you're doing. Is like, okay,
And different guys are going to run different equations based on different data they
well,
see, and
yeah, I
that's why
feel
we
you, but
need
like, here's the
machines.
thing. Like, we can go. All right, I know that. You know what I'm saying? Like, a gallon of water is like 13.5 pounds, right? I know that. Like fucking like this weighs this much. This is this much. This costs this much, right? And so like I just kind of go, all right, well, let's follow the money, because that's kind of what's really important in the end of the day,
It
right?
is. It is. It is. I recommend James Corbett's series "How Big Oil Took Over the World." It's a very good documentary. But well, maybe we've said enough. I'm getting kind of tired, but this is fun. Let's continue this conversation again soon, okay?
Well, you know the deal, man. You're always welcome anytime you want to have a conversation, on politics, or, fucking what's going on in your
I
world, and you
may
want to
actually
bring
want
out
to bring a friend of
information.
mine in.
Like, yo, dude,
I
legit.
want to bring a friend of mine, a friend of mine, John, in here too. He's got a different perspective from me too, so
Well, that's cool.
it might be interesting. Let's do it
Yo,
again soon, okay?
send him a link to my Discord. You know what I'm saying? So like, like I
Yeah.
have, he can have access to message me. You know what I mean, or get a hold of me, whatever the case might be. You know what I mean? Just tell
Uh-huh.
him, just tell him like, yo, just be fucking cool. Like,
I think you'll actually like John. I think you'll actually like John. Let's talk again soon. All right. God bless, man.
God bless my brother. Peace.